Hey everybody, I'm Charting Man Dan with the Chart Guys. We're going to check in on Bitcoin. We've had a lot of market volatility over the last few days with the headlines coming out of the Middle East with the escalation of global conflict. And overall, Bitcoin still fairly range bound. We're going to look at a crypto stock that is glaringly standing out. I want to own it long term. I'm struggling to find an entry. Let's check it out. Learn how to trade stocks, crypto, and hype sectors with a global chat room led by professional traders, as well as daily live streams at chartguys.com. Okay, so first the NASDAQ, which at this point dipped to start the week and fairly decent dip buying here at the end of the day. And we have overall the lowest level that we've seen in months in the NASDAQ is being tested, but it is also still holding at this point. And we can see the bounce that we had today. Everything shifted once the bulls got their first 5-minute uptrend. That was the low of the day, and the bulls have kept control since then. That said, we will still have to confirm a 4-hour trend change. I'm going to be watching to see if the bulls can shape up an inverse head and shoulders on the 4-hour time frame, depending on what happens overnight. But that's one setup that I'm watching. So while that's been taking place, Bitcoin is still friggin' sideways. That said, bulls will take it. We had an initial bearish reaction to the headlines over the weekend while all markets were closed and nothing else was reacting. And we pretty quickly saw the bulls buy that dip. And we dropped 3.5%. And then we were quickly green later that day when things got digested a bit. So drawing our resistances, it is still this zone where we've topped out now 4 times on the bounce attempt, 70 to 72,000. So we've got to get over that. And not only that, the bulls then need to turn it into support and hold it on any back tests. So the burden obviously is still on bulls at this point. And I've been comparing in a recent live stream, I compared Bitcoin not necessarily to the NASDAQ, but more so to software. Because again, right now the NASDAQ has 3 major components that are all pulling in different directions. You've got semiconductors, which were the lead bear on the morning with the size of their gap down. You've got the Mag 7, which held the low of Friday or Monday, yesterday. And you've got software. And we've been seeing software, which was all bear, have relative strength. Look at that, 6 days in a row now with the close higher than the open. And so I did a stream here a couple weeks ago where I was saying Bitcoin is just the software sector with weekends of trading, weekend candles. And I circled major pivots that was the exact same date on both software and Bitcoin. And so Bitcoin bulls are hoping that they can do what software is doing right now, which is relative strength and hitting the highest level that we've seen in 3 weeks. And so right now, we're getting up towards Wednesday, February 11th levels. And if Bitcoin were going to be doing the same thing, we would be up at, well, we are. We're in that zone where we were trading back then. So looking at Bitcoin divided by the NASDAQ, a small amount of relative strength is showing itself, and that needs to follow through. So some initial signs, we can say Bitcoin bulls are positioned well if the NASDAQ can give us confidence that we'll call it a war bottom, that a war bottom is being found. And at this moment, we're not confident that a war bottom is being found because we have yet to confirm even an hourly uptrend. We could say, hey, that's a solid bounce. Bulls are giving themselves space to try and change some of these trends, but that's what happened yesterday as well. That was a solid bounce. We'll go back 4 hour. But the NASDAQ, it was a solid bounce. And we rolled over hard. The bulls were unable to form that higher low. 2.5% bounce. So now this is a 2% bounce. Can we form the higher low this time around? And we're gonna get that information into tomorrow. And so we can say that if the NASDAQ can confirm a 4-hour inverse head and shoulders, that Bitcoin will likely be over 70,000 and testing 72. So tightening up. And we know that keep an eye out for a volume spike because when things get this tight, It's generally a spike in volume that's part of the clue that the break is coming. So daily inside bar today, all things considered. ETH, same deal, sideways, very glaring double top at 2150, and we're just smack dab in the middle of this range. This is a $350 range, and the midway point would be 1975, and we're at 1982. So we are right in the middle of this range, and we have been within this range for the last month. A break is coming. And we know if it breaks bull, we're just going to zoom out and scout a weekly lower high eventually. So we have to keep that in mind as well. It can be a short-term victory for bulls if it breaks bull, but that's just one battle, and there's a lot more battles to go. ETH BTC, still weak. Tried to get things going. It really just lasted one day. One solid day of outperformance, and now we're back in a daily downtrend with a lower high and lower low. So still very much range bound and sideways on ETH BTC. So no real information. All right, so the crypto stock that I am most interested in, and then we'll get to questions and such and altcoin check-ins, is CRCL. And CRCL started showing relative strength. We started talking about its relative strength back here. Then it had a bullish earnings reaction, and now it's been relative strength, just massively glaring. And the reason I have so much interest in CRCL is because C is my favorite letter. No. The reason is because it is a industry of the future. Let's just say stable coins. It is a small sector. There's not, 8 different choices of companies that have a strong foothold in the stable coin space, public companies. And it's post IPO. And you will find historically, if you go back and look at a pioneer of a future digital sector, post IPO, slow bleed, find a bottom, and then it's many hundreds of percent from that bottom over the next bunch of years. Now, I have no idea if CRCL is going to do that, but what I do know is it's worth an attempt. And the best example I can give you is Meta. So Meta, back when there weren't a ton of social media companies public, goes public 2012. Look at this terrible IPO. We start with all the hype at $45, weekly downtrend. We drop down. Next thing you know, we're at 17. So we dropped 60% roughly in the span of a bunch of months. And then we slowly put in a bottom. This was a monthly lower high, monthly higher low. And the rest is history. So there's the bottoming pattern. Monthly uptrend confirms, new all-time high. And we then go from 17 to a bajillion. Many thousands of percent. So can CRCL put in a long-term bottom, eventually confirm a monthly uptrend, and someday it's trading up at $627 and is up 1,000% from that all-time low? I don't know, but it's worth a shot. So it's had glaring relative strength each day. Bulls have bought the dip significantly. And at this point, because I have missed it up to this point, it's looking like I'm going to need to wait for a weekly higher low, because technically we haven't even confirmed a weekly uptrend yet. So we'll need a weekly higher low and higher high. Then we'll need a monthly higher low and higher high. And we're just now getting back to this previous price action zone that had a lot of levels within it, low 100s. But I'm very interested in CRCL because it's trading right now as if its long-term bottom is being found. Now, obviously, if Bitcoin drops down to 35,000, if the NASDAQ drops down another 20%, we can head back down towards that all-time low. But we need another 50% drop to get back down to that level. And so I have interest long-term in CRCL. We'll see how it goes from here. There has been relative strength in other stocks. Our last live stream, I think we talked about that, right? The crypto stocks that were showing us relative strength, Riot is even among them. You know, Riot is, as we haven't even started weekly consolidation yet on Riot with all the Bitcoin weakness, now the NASDAQ weakness. So I'm watching to see if Riot gives us a weekly equilibrium. It's just chopping around. I don't have a lot of clarity or interest in it, but I can look at it and say, well, Riot's holding on a bit better than I thought it would be. And see, you know, most of these names, CLSK, stronger than Bitcoin. We can say that much just over the last couple of weeks. But CRCL, glaringly different. What's coin doing? I haven't looked today. Yeah, relative strength to Bitcoin, but that's about it. Weekly chart has a lot of work to do. Okay. I'm going to answer a couple questions here. Got some from some Chart Guys members, and then I'll read the YouTube chat. So if Bitcoin and Ethereum hold this range from here, what are entry areas I'm interested in for long-term swings or attempting to reestablish a position? So if you're asking for me personally, I have my position. I have a risk-free Ethereum play from this capitulation, and I've got my long-term no touch. So I'm not looking to do anything in crypto anytime soon aside from CRCL. And I'm either going to stop out and have no interest, or we're going to break bull and I'm going to be looking at, you know, where to take some profit, anticipating an eventual weekly lower high. If let's pretend I didn't have a position, this is the kind of setup where there are so many stronger stock sectors out there where if I want to look long, I'd rather be looking at things that are, you know, setting a monthly higher low or a weekly higher low even. So I would need some, for me to get reinterested, if I weren't positioning in extreme fear, utilizing my edge to play bounces, I would need a big bounce. Let's just do Bitcoin. I would need a big enough weekly bounce to say, oh, wow, that's impressive. And then I scout a weekly higher low to see if I can look for an entry there with low risk. And then if we confirm a weekly trend change, things significantly shift. And if not, I stop out with a small loss. But bulls aren't close to proving anything. Again, if I weren't positioned from my edge, I would have no interest looking long here. I'd just be watching to see what direction we break and not really caring. So we looked at MS. Oh, MSTR, what's it doing? Same thing as Bitcoin. Tiny bit of relative strength, but not much. And again, if this sideways range on the daily breaks bull, anything under 190 is a weekly lower high. So I always remind myself that because we can go up 30% and still set a weekly lower high. For me to get interested in MSTR, it would need to be outperforming Bitcoin. Why would I want MSTR long if Bitcoin is going up more? And MSTR, again, has been outperforming very, very slightly the last few weeks, but we need to see that glaringly shift. We need to see a long-term, like a 3-month higher low forming with MSTR relative strength to Bitcoin. Microphone. Nope, it's the main one. But thanks for the heads up. What would I need to see to say that Bitcoin has put in a longer term bottom? Weekly uptrend at a bare minimum. Again, in a recent live stream, I talked about how the $18,000 bottom was literally just the first confirmed weekly uptrend that we had seen in like 8 months or whatever it was. Yeah, 8 to 9 months. First weekly uptrend. And from that point, we didn't look back. So weekly uptrend confirming at a bare minimum is the time frame to say, hey, things are potentially shifting back towards the bulls. Because bigger picture, we're looking for, I mean, really, it's a 6-month higher low. We're looking for a 6-month higher low. And so the weekly uptrend confirming would be the first baby step towards a potential 6-month higher low. All right, NASDAQ still hanging on, chopping around into the end of the day. On to YouTube, Slovakia #1. RXR is frustrated that the bears were unable to follow through today. Just got to trim. Whether you're playing a bounce, trim some into the bounce. Whether you're playing bearish, trim some. I mean, if we get, the NASDAQ was down 2.5% today. 2.5%, generally, you want to trim a little bit, especially when the VIX is spiking to that magnitude and right into previous tops. Just trim a bit. If it keeps going, great. You've got the rest of the position to keep making profit. If a bounce gets going, great. You lock some in. But again, the bulls do still have to confirm trend changes on the NASDAQ and S&P 500 at this point, because yesterday was a nice bounce as well, but no trend changes had confirmed. What's up, Dylan? Nice job, Black Mamba. How do I feel about the metals drop? So if you've been watching our weekend videos, this was the most likely scenario for the last 2 weeks. Saying bulls have full control. Don't forget, weekly lower high is the most likely scenario. I anticipate we're going to set a weekly lower high and then trade sideways for a good bit of March. And so I was at a conference over the weekend in Miami, Traders for a Cause. Interestingly enough, nobody was talking about crypto ever once. But I was speculating, hey, if this gap up on the escalation news may be the weekly lower high tops. And that is what happened. Silver, weekly lower high set, it's just equilibriums. When you have enough experience to know when to scout an equilibrium, it's like a cheat code. Weekly higher low, now a weekly lower high. Guess what? I'm going to scout a higher low, and we're going to tighten up a lot of March, and we'll look for a break either late March or early April from this sideways range. And a lot of the metals did it. Copper, weekly lower high, just barely set. Platinum, weekly lower high set. It was the most likely scenario. And so I made a post on Twitter today. The best cure for fundamental fakeouts is knowing the most likely technical scenarios. And I'm just thinking about how many people in the world the last 2 days are very surprised by what metals have done with the Middle East escalation. And those who knew the most likely scenario was a weekly equilibrium aren't surprised at all. That's why I prefer charts over fundamentals. Yeah, dilution definitely a factor. I mean, like anything, you got to keep an eye on stuff. CRCL. I would assume that, I would just use the charts as my guide for any long-term position, but use AI and ask about, what's their cash flow? Are they going to have to be diluting to keep the lights on? It's obviously an extremely different business model between CRCL and MARA. No, I don't mess around with options and leaps. If I want a long-term position, it's common shares. Just let it play out. For me, I don't have a limit on capital. That's not the right way to say it. I have plenty of cash to do whatever I want with, because I keep so much of my all of my day trading account cash, and that's the majority of my capital. So I'm never at a point where it's like, well, I don't want to use up all my capital because then I don't have cash to do this. So if it were the case that I had limited capital, then yeah, either leveraged plays, ETFs, or options is a way to combat that. For Bitcoin, for me to call Bitcoin a bear flag, we would want to see a break with no follow through. So if we pop above, if we get to 73 and then start daily consolidation, then I start scouting the bear flag. This sideways range can break in either direction, but for me, the primary definition of a bull flag or a bear flag is the break with no follow through. You break support with no follow through, it's a bull flag. You break resistance with no follow through, it's a potential bear flag. Bear market denial is definitely a thing. So I made a post on Twitter how I think the Jane Street news is being sensationalized. Yes, there's manipulation in markets. I'm not denying that at all. But I think a lot of people, they're just looking for the home run Hail Mary to bail them out of monthly, weekly, daily downtrends and their clear mistake of not selling above 100,000 in euphoria as the president of the United States was launching a meme coin. And so they look at the Jane Street news and say, aha, we're being manipulated. That's the reason. I knew I shouldn't have sold. They were cheating and we'd be at 200,000 if it weren't for them. And I was right. It's honestly, it's just the ego defending itself from having to look in the mirror and say, I made a mistake. I was wrong. I have to improve upon things. It's the easy way out to try and it's the ego's way of trying to stay, behind the curtain. Like, no, you need to pull that curtain back and stare it in the face. Anything that happens in markets is your fault. And again, I've given the example before. I had maybe a $30,000 account. I lost $5,000 overnight because I was swing trading a Chinese penny stock and I was just looking for a 3-day swing or whatever. And I lost, 20% of my capital overnight when it was delisted. Am I blaming the company for being a scam? Am I blaming the NASDAQ for delisting the company? No, I'm blaming myself for being in a Chinese penny stock and having that exposure. That had never happened to me before. It was a lesson, and I've never lost money in a delisted stock again for the rest of my life from that point forward. And I can't remember even now I hardly trade BABA or anything like that because of the gaps overnight and the less trust for Chinese listed securities that have less scrutiny. Everything needs to be traced back to you if you want to improve and succeed in this game. All the success is because of you. All the failures are because of you. I pay attention superficially to inflation yields in 10-year bonds. I've got a TLT position that's risk-free, that's just doing nothing for years. I longed it back here, sell partial, stop under the low, and I haven't stopped out. I will add to it if we confirm a monthly uptrend over 92s. But it doesn't significantly inform my decisions with trading. GTAF. I don't know anything about it, obviously, but it's as bearish as you can get, just being in a downtrend on every single time frame at all-time lows. Any market in the world, anything, you can't find something more bearish than a downtrend on every single time frame at all-time lows. So I'm very confident saying this is never going back to all-time highs. Again, my experience is penny stocks. 4 to 5 years when I started at penny stocks. And the vast majority of penny stocks look like altcoins, and they just bleed forever. And then you reverse split and you dilute and you bleed some more. And that's just what happens to 95% of them. And so that's always been my mindset of where the altcoin space is going. And I've obviously voiced that many times over the years. And so this, if you cover this up and say, what is this? I say that's a penny stock that just has tons of dilution. And you got to learn the lessons, right? So I made money in the cannabis penny stock boom of 2013. And then I grabbed a couple lotto plays and they went to zero. And I gave back 10% of my profits. Those two names that are zero are still in my Fidelity account. I already use them for tax write-offs, but I literally can't sell them because there's no bid. Nobody in the world wants to buy them for 1/10 of a penny or 100th of a penny. And so they just go to zero. And the majority of altcoins are going to do that, in my opinion. So yeah, MSTR strength, relative strength, we need more of it. It's all right, you know, it's a little bit, we'll take it, but it needs to continue. It needs to be a week after week thing. How was Traders for a Cause overall, the conference? I'm not the target market. I was hoping there'd be a little bit more experience there. There were a handful of traders that had some experience, but you know, on the first day of presentations, so I've been trading for 15 years. You know, you got one guy come up who's been trading for 7 years, and another guy who's been trading for 5 years, and another guy who's been trading for 11 years. And I was just hoping for a bit more experience. And most of the people there were still trying to make it as traders. And that's all fine, right? But I just was under the impression it would be a little bit different. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not the target market. It's for people to network. It's for people who are lonely trading and want to create a little group or whatever. And I obviously have had that for 11 years with the chart guys. So that's not a void in my life at all. So it was, okay. In, little tidbits of educational stuff, but the way that they did it is like, okay, hey, you want to present? What do you want to present on? Pick a topic, 40 minutes, great. And so there wasn't much cohesion. If I wanted to make an educational conference, I could do a way better job. There's my ego. But, it would be focus. That wasn't the focus. I think the focus was just to network, and I don't know. But yeah, someday I'll do something, whether it's a retreat or something that is educationally focused and lifestyle focused and community cohesion focused, that will be better and smaller. What time frame do I use for most likely scenario? Is it the most clear? Yeah, any of them. 1 minute to start the day. Then my progression to start the day, the bell rings, I'm on the 1 minute. I know what the hourly and the 15 minute and the daily all look like. I'm on the 1 minute, and then we confirm a trend change on the one. Today for the NASDAQ, I just started on the 1 minute. We're in a clear 1 minute downtrend. So absolutely nothing changes if we just keep seeing 1 minute lower highs and lower lows. We had a 1 minute head and shoulders to start the day. And so from this point forward, bears prove control, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. Are we shifting? Maybe, no. And then I was zooming to the 5 minute, and it was the 5 minute that changed things. And we confirmed the first 5 minute uptrend of the day. Back here. And then I thought we might get a 15 minute equilibrium and tighten up a bit. The bulls surprised me. Shouldn't say surprised. They impressed me with their follow through. 15 minute EMA 12 rider. So I just go 1 minute to 5 minutes to 15 minutes to hourly, really just progressing through the day. And if I'm on the 15 minute, then I'm on the 2 minute to look at the nested time frame. If I'm looking for hourly consolidation, I'm on the 5 minute. But yeah, I'll just toggle, depending on the name, I'll toggle the different time frames to find where it's most clear for me. Is BTC divided by USDT.D any more useful than just USDT? Honestly, I have no idea. I've never used it, so I couldn't say. I don't think so. I hope not. I hope I'm not missing things. Is that even a thing? I don't even know if that's a thing. Anyways, I don't know what. I guess you're trying to measure it compared to stablecoin dominance. I don't know. CRV. Same as Bitcoin. We're just patiently waiting for the break. We've got the high. So resistance zone 265 to 271, multiple tops. And we're just waiting for the break. Daily inside bar today, just like Bitcoin. It is an inverse head and shoulders attempt. If we're just looking at it from here, left shoulder, head, right shoulder's trying to form. And guess what just confirmed? An inverse head and shoulders, software stocks, IGV, 4 hour, left shoulder, head, neckline, same level. Bull break, setback with the gap down today, but trying to get that inverse head and shoulders confirmed. I'm still in a, I took an end of day short here. Oh, nice. No, I might have stopped out. I gotta check. Nope, still in it. So I was just looking for hourly consolidation into the end of the day. This is actually the Korean market that I've been trading a bit more. Just looking for hourly consolidation after a solid bounce. I played the bounce, sold it much too soon. All right. Already talked about metals. Rewind a bit. BTC USD divided by USDT.D. Okay, so yeah, it's Bitcoin. I mean, just at a glance, it's not telling me anything that the other chart isn't telling me. Yeah, maybe, but not for me. All right, I'm wrapping it up. I appreciate you watching. I have no interest in Adobe long because I'm long IGV. That's all I need. Got it covered. Now we look for a weekly lower high on software and hope that the bulls can follow through at least to weekly EMA 12. That was my target on Netflix, which the news helped us blow through. But that's always my initial target. If we're looking for the weekly bounce, we hope to get to weekly EMA 12. All right, so volatility's coming. We know that much. Bitcoin's going to break here within the next couple of, probably this week, honestly. We only have 3 trading days left, so that's a bit of a bold statement, but I do think we will break before the weekend. So pay attention. All right, do good things. One more. XRP. little bit weaker than Bitcoin. Well, we were initially stronger on this side of the bounce, and now we're a little bit weaker as that balances out a bit. Multiple daily, well, inside bars, 133 support. Let's go to the 2-day time frame. So got to get over 149 if we're going to make any progress here, because it's just a 2-day downtrend. Every bounce. Lower highs and lower lows. Lower high, lower high. Got to get over, got to break those lower highs. Honestly, I'd be just as interested as XRP divided by BTC. And again, there's that. We were stronger on the initial bounce, and we've been weaker ever since as that balances out a bit. But we've got to confirm a weekly uptrend on XRP BTC for a notable shift. Bulls are hoping at least for a weekly higher low to try an equilibrium on XRP BTC. But again, the number one reason why I always look at the BTC pairing of any altcoin is because if the altcoin is going to be underperforming Bitcoin, you obviously want to be in Bitcoin. The altcoin has to be in an uptrend or bottoming out on the BTC pairing for that to be the correct decision on the coin to be trading. All right. Do good things. Thank you. Click the buttons. See you soon. Watch the NASDAQ. Bitcoin bulls want that NASDAQ fear to alleviate.